Good morning, Samoa, and welcome to Star Trek Lower Decks, Season 4, Episode 3, in the Cradle of Vexilon. And, of course, before we do that, we will also be doing Star Trek Very Short Treks Holiday Party. Notice I have dropped the animated series Season 3. Yes, also look who forgot to do the promotions for the thumbnail. I'll have to take care of that after this stream. But yeah, still wanting to say Star Trek Picard Season 3 habitually, but, this episode, well, okay, no, let's go straight into Very Short Treks, because that's what, well, as the title suggests, they are very short. It wasn't good. Holiday Party was not good. The first episode of Very Short Treks, some people liked it, some people don't, but it felt satirical, like it was a satire sort of thing, which meant it could be fun, which meant it could be funny. Or rather, it was satirical, so it was fun, that meant it could be funny, whether or not you found it funny or whatnot. This one wasn't satire, so I'm forced to believe it was just supposed to be like a normal comedy short for Star Trek. And it wasn't comedy, if it wasn't funny, and it wasn't Star Trek. It was bad. And most of the people in the comments seemed to think it was a significant improvement. There were like maybe 3 individual lines that worked, but this was bad. And also, I genuinely don't know. Is this Michael Burnham or is this some random person? Because obviously this person is white, and Michael Burnham is not white. But Giorgio Saru and some random person feels a bit weird. Who is that supposed to be? But yeah, honestly, that's enough about Holiday Party. It sucked. It was bad. And it made me wish that we just got proper animated shorts, like animated tasks, but for other shows. Kind of like, if you've never seen it, someone on YouTube did Best of Both Worlds and Threshold in the animated series style. They're amazing. And I was like, man, I would have loved that now. Like, if you're not gonna do satire, give me that. But yeah, yeah, let's hope the other ones are better, because that one was not good. Lower Decks, though. Into the thing that's actually part of the title. I don't know. This one didn't quite do it. It could have used some work for me. I don't know. There were kind of bits where it really picked up, and it's like, oh, actually, I think, this could be good. But, I think especially for Season 4 of a show, it was almost like lazy or a bit too simplistic. Ironic, I think this is the first time I've ever said this for Lower Decks, but there were some things that probably could have just moved faster. Like, whole Boimler trying to take the whole away mission under himself, like not letting his ensigns do anything. I get it needed to happen, but I feel like it didn't need to happen for like 10 minutes. It wasn't really a joke. It wasn't really funny. It just was kind of too long. This episode felt like it had a lot of great endings. It had things it wanted to do. Now that these guys are lieutenants, it had stories it wanted to tell with them adjusting that are good, and I like that. But it kind of, I don't know, it made the endings kind of work, but the getting to those endings, it felt like they started with a goal, and they forced themselves to get to the goal, I guess, if that makes sense. And then another aspect is it felt kind of a lot more than probably any other episode, just kind of references for the sake of references, like this anomaly room. this reference room. You know, we don't need any of these. We don't need the Wadi game, the beta. I mean, we arguably kind of need the Wadi game, but we don't need the Betazoid thing. We don't need the weird Inner Light reference. I mean, you know, Lower Decks to some extent has always had that kind of just reference. I mean, it's had reference for the sake of reference since the beginning, yes. But I think it's grown up a little bit since then, and if it can't fit the references into the story, or they're just like some background thing. Like, you know, that collector's museum they went to was a great chance for like little references in the background that you need to put something in the background. Let's put like Picard's painting, you know, let's put artifacts from like alien civilizations and other episodes. That's great. This was literally the characters walk into a reference room so that you can put some references into it. And we established the Wadi game is here, but the only reason you need the Wadi game and the other stuff is because you need this resolution at the end to be references. And in particular, they wanted Ala Moraine. Like, that's the reason we have this whole thing, is they want the Ala Moraine jokes. So yeah, I don't know. This wasn't the best. This wasn't the strongest for me. I did like, though, conceptually, which I think is where, you know, what they want for this episode, I liked Boimler's little thing of having to learn to be a lieutenant. It felt a little recycled in that Wesley went through a similar thing, you know, when he got his first team, and he was like, well, what gives me the right to, like, give any of these people orders? It's like, you're a lieutenant. Like, that gives you the right. I don't know. I'm just not particularly interested in that. I liked it much better. And what it actually seemed like was, yeah, Boimler's now in a position where he can get people killed, and this is a really dangerous mission, and he has to deal with that. Very naturally, he's super nervous about it. And so I really liked when something, I don't know, starts with a T apostrophe, but it's a Vulcan woman, so that comes as fact. Oh my god, how late in the episode is this part? There we go. It took like 17 minutes to get to the part where I liked the arc. Like, yeah, I liked Boimler kind of starting to come to terms, because that was it. They were all starting to come to terms with, like, being a commander. I mean, Boimler literally sacrificed himself at the end of this. Like, you know, I think he did learn good lessons about being a lieutenant and being in charge of a team. And it was really good from, like, this point until he died. Like, I really liked that. That was good. But it's like you need to wait 17 minutes to get to this point. And I feel the comedy wasn't particularly strong, which means the story needs to be strong. Do I still have my engine hum going? I do. 1 second. You can't hear it, but I have it in my headphones. Yeah, if you're not going to do comedy, your story needs to be stronger, and your character work needs to be stronger. And I don't think that was particularly strong this episode either. If we pop over to the other plot line, which, by the way, kudos, they're mixing up the standard teams a bit more. I mean, this was a team of 3, and I guess 2, which you can do now that you have Terrell, which I'm going to assume is her name. But, you know, usually it's Mariner Boimler and then Tindy Rutherford. They're mixing that up. I'm not sure if any of the 3 episodes have had that.
That's the best one.
Yep, Alex pointing at Tindy. But yeah, this plot line didn't do it a lot for me. First off, it really, really bothered me how they were haphazardly, randomly scanning the chips, starting at, like, a random row, not even the first one, like a random chip, and then just popping along. I'm like, no. You start with this chip down here, and then you work your way around the room. I'm like, God, this is going to take you 20 years, and you'll scan every chip 5 times. But, yeah, I was kind of like, this does seem like something that a lieutenant junior grade would do if it's important enough. Like, it's menial, but someone's got to do it. And if a little core in the computer is bad, that's pretty critical. There should be backups that it doesn't seem like there are. Well, no, I guess this was a whole hazing thing, so anything this guy says is a little unreliable. But yeah, for these three, I mean, I know it. I guess it's weird because Tendy was right. This was a hazing thing, but it's so weird for them to. I just felt abandon all of that, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, this does feel important, if menial. There are a lot of important menial tasks. I don't know, just didn't do it so much for me. But it was a lot of this stuff in these last little bits were good. I mean, this is more continuity reference, if anything, but I love the Black Mountain. You got, of course, everybody's favorite, the canonical koala in which the back of the universe rests on top of. But yeah, shall we start the scene by scene? Oh yeah, I do like the megastructure. A ring world is something we've never seen in Star Trek before. We have a Dyson sphere in Alpha Canon. Yes, a Dyson sphere, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, I like megastructures. Who doesn't like a good megastructure? You kind of can't go too crazy, because if there's a Dyson sphere sitting in Federation space, suddenly the Federation has infinite energy and is like crazy powerful. Or at least they should. I guess they kind of have infinite energy anyway, but like a ring world is just kind of a world. You'll get engineering out of that, you'll get science, but you know, it's a great megastructure to have that doesn't suddenly make the Federation more powerful than any other power. And yeah, it's good to see. I liked, finally, I don't even know if this exists in another part of the franchise, but I like having a computer that's actually good in running the place and kind of picturing it like, yeah, that kind of utopia where just a computer does everything could work. TOS was the worst at this, but I think just the further back you go, the worse this gets. There's always a depiction of like, there's so many things, even some that we have now, but like this extreme of like the computer does everything, or like if you just build computers, they're gonna take over the world. Is like TOS kind of has that message a lot, and it's like that's ridiculous. Like, you know, that just doesn't make any sense. I like that they're like, no, this happens. Like sometimes you just get a computer that's a good computer and does its job because the person who programmed it wasn't an idiot. And on top of that, it's sentient. It's a person. Like, they're good people, you know? The other one got the genetic engineering just leads to dictators one that we're thankfully subverting. It's like that. It's like, what this... There's no level in which this makes sense. Like, other than your magic sci-fi declaration that genetic engineering makes you ambitious and amoral. Which is... You don't... That's not even defending that. You're just saying that because you're a fiction. It's like, I can do what I want. So yeah, you know, I like that, a civilization that just lives in utopia, because, like, yeah, sometimes it works. I am getting a phone call. Go away. I get so many of those phone calls nowadays, because my number got put on, like, a billion lists at the same time. This is probably going to be a short one, by the way, because... There just wasn't much to say, because I don't think the comedy was too strong. I don't think the story work was the character work was too strong for the first part of this episode. And it's not even much of a reference fest for me to point at or, like, speculate. But I will say, I like it if this series, which it probably will be, is focused on everyone just kind of becoming a lieutenant, and like what does that mean? And we've already set up Mariner, which we'll probably spend a few seasons on. Getting past her like obsession with being an ensign, or like her reluctance, or whatever it is that's stopping her from moving up and keeps getting her demoted. I like that we're seeing the crew, particularly our main cast, more just like kind of knowing everyone. Like they've been around for a few years. They're now lieutenants. Like, they're chatting, hanging out with their coworkers like I never do. I really don't think we see this. Like, the TNG family is, of course, pretty famous, but that's just the bridge crew, really, and maybe, like, a few recurring characters, like, I don't know, Barclay or something. But even then, I'm not sure you really see the TNG crew hang out like a lot of these people in Lower Decks. Even the bridge crew in Lower Decks will hang out. I don't know what is, if it's just, like, the cross-rank stuff, or just the nature of it, but I think I've always said that's really well done. I'm also just more and more convinced, the more I'm looking at these, are these just NX Enterprise Warp engines? Like, they're really similar, and I noticed that in the episode, but they're very similar. Yeah, no, that is just the warp engines of the NX. Lovely interior, but... yeah, I don't know, there wasn't a lot. It was just kind of a really basic episode. And you can have basic episodes in plot lines. You do it when the plot isn't the focus. Like, it happens plenty of times. There's just, I'm not sure what else the focus should have been, because it's almost like there are three things. There's this plot, there's the hazing stuff, that's like the B plot, and then there's Boimler's first mission in charge, and it feels like all of them are taking a back seat to something. There's nothing that's taking that forward seat. That's really what it is they're all really good, at least B plots. There's just, this episode doesn't really have an A plot. I do wish, if I changed things, I might have said that it wasn't actually a hazing. This was just like, showing. I mean, the moral of this kind of B plot, is to always. I mean, they say it at the end. It's, let's always assume the best in people. Very Federation, very Starfleet, very utopian. I would say yes, but even just the less extreme of never assuming the worst is great. It's a good lesson, but it does kind of really undermine it, where you're like, no, actually, these guys really were just messing with them and making their lives miserable. It kind of, I don't know, it undermines the message. Like, what were they supposed to learn in this episode? Because they were supposed to learn that, hey, we're all here, we're all working together, we're all trying to make this ship go, like, let's just do our job, let's be professionals. But that's not what actually happened. So they've learned a lesson that doesn't actually apply to their lives, and in the meta sense, it's actually a good lesson that are you now telling your audience not to do that? I don't know, it just felt a little bit strange, but I mean, this was a great, rather, oh my god, what has happened to your eyes? This is a great, rather extreme example of, like, yeah, you don't know what other people are going through, you don't know, like, their reasons, and again, yes, manually scanning all of those chips, it sucks, but I can think of several situations where you'd have to do that. Like, you probably could have set up some automated system that just, it's on rails and it goes up and down and scans all of them. Like, but they don't have that, Like, so as it's set up now, yeah, every now and then someone's got to just go do that. Yeah, we had Reference Fest down to even the exact same levels that Cisco and crew went through. So, you know what, you get the impression in the Deep Space Nine episode. This is what really becomes references for reference's sake. You get the impression in the Deep Space Nine episode that it's sort of like it's a game where there are a bunch of different things that can happen. You know, there's hundreds, thousands, like God knows. There's a bunch of scenarios, you know, and challenges you have to go. But the fact that Rutherford got the exact same 3, does that mean that, like, you play this game once and there's zero replayability that this culture's obsessed with? Maybe it's a new player. Who's playing the game? Because Rutherford's in the game, but in Deep Space Nine, those were the players. There's someone outside who's taking bets and stuff. Does the game have a single-player mode? You know, and even then, there's the bit at the end where Rutherford gets out because he falls off the cliff that I think Jadzia fell off of, if I remember right. It might have been Kira. But then you realize, why was he trying to win the game? Like, he knows that he's not going to die. You know, this isn't the Deep Space Nine episode. He clearly knows what's going on because he's beating all his games. Why doesn't he just die in the poison room? You know, if you start thinking about it, it's like, the reason is because the writers wanted to reference the Wadi game. And that's kind of where we get into references for reference's sake. Like, it's pretty empty. I feel like this is a reference that just kind of cheapens the inner light. It's like, oh, this is just a thing that happens all the time now. And they're so casually like, yeah, sorry, dude, you know, apparently you're not sentient, but, you know, you can go through this whole life and be traumatized. And Rutherford's just like, meh, sorry about that, you know, you're just a box. You're just Armin Sherman, you know. But, you know, the bits that I think were the goal of the episode, like, even down to, you know, the sacrifices Boimler makes, and this, like, those were really well done. If I have a complaint, I actually just had someone comment on, I don't even remember what video it was, but they were, one of the people was like, Lower Decks isn't even Star Trek. It listed a bunch of reasons, but then was like, I don't remember their wording, but they basically insinuated that Lower Decks has, like, slapstick cartoon physics and is, like, constant. It just doesn't give a damn about physics, and it's like, it's a cartoon, we're doing whatever we want. People's got stretchy arms, and they can, like... Okay, the joke I was gonna say is they can explode and be fine, and that's literally what happened in the episode. My point is that, okay, you've now introduced an actual counterexample to that argument. Like, maybe that was a bit extreme. It did kill him, yes, but he got better, you know? But, I mean, that's a minor thing, you know? That's a minor thing. And yeah, there's really not too much this episode. Oh my god, my review! Look at that! Oh no, it's just longer. I was gonna say my review is shorter than the episode for once. But yeah, this was a weaker one for me. It moved the characters forward in the way it wanted to, and it did those scenes very well. It just... It felt like everything was working towards that scene with Boimler. But not necessarily in what made a good story or a compelling story, just because they needed to get to that bit at the end. Del, did you get that the koala was the audio reverse? You said it's not your time, Bradward Boimler. Really, I did not think it was going to be reverse speech. It did not sound like it. Let me... Yeah, you cannot... Actually, you know what? I'll let you hear this one, too. Here's the koala.
Hi?
Wow, that does not sound like reverse speech. But yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Weird. Usually, you know, reverse speech has a certain sound, but that was not it. It kind of sounds like any other show. I might say that this is like, it's like foreshadowing the fact that Boimler's gonna die. But I'm like, no, I mean, he is gonna die eventually, in the sense that everybody is gonna die eventually, and this is not his time. But, Yeah, I thought, actually, because remember, there is a second Boimler out there in the universe. I wondered if they actually were gonna, like, kill Boimler proper, or, like, the next episode would have been something dealing with this. But, I'm not unhappy about how they did it. Like, you've given everyone a promotion. If you hadn't done that, I might start complaining about, again, they don't stick with their consequences. Like, literally killing a character, then bringing them back is the epitome of not sticking with your consequences. Dustin found that. It's also a Twin Peaks reference. Maybe. I've never seen it. I wouldn't be surprised, but it is also just a pretty generic phrase. It's probably the most generic thing he could have said in this situation. But I do love that we are doubling down the fact that canonically, in the Star Trek universe, the universe is balanced on the back of a giant koala, who now just seems to be an all-powerful supreme being. Like, is he death? Does he control us? Does he decide our fates? Like, is he God? You know, it's... People said that Deep Space Nine went into religion, and, you know, they love that. I never really got that, because I'm like, the prophets, they're right there. I can prove that it exists. Like, yes, they're a religion, and it does religious themes, but I always felt there was something different with Deep Space Nine, where you can point to the prophets and be like, yeah, they're there. I know they exist. And, you know, I know they send out the orbs. I've asked them. It always bothers me in Deep Space Nine. It likes to put up a conflict between, like, the Bajoran faith and the belief that the prophets are gods, you know, and they guide the Bajoran people specifically. And Moopsie is God. There we go. That's at the right-hand side of the koala is Moopsie. Moopsie's the equivalent of Jesus in this situation. He's the emissary to Earth. But you know, the prophets, like, yeah, they're become religious figures, and in the Federation, everyone else is like, no, they're just aliens that live in the wormhole, you know? And I'm like, what's the difference? Why can none of you see that there's no difference? Jadzia's, I think, is the only one who way late in the show finally points out, like, it literally is the same thing. Like, yes, the wormhole aliens, the prophets are aliens that live in the wormhole, and do, by and large, exactly what the Bajorans say. I think they're a little... I mean, you know, we have the benefit of seeing Sisko talk to the prophets, and, so we don't see too much about what the Bajorans believe, but I get the impression they think the prophets are much more active in their lives and their fates than what seems to be. But by and large, they do exactly what the Bajorans say. And I'm like, if God was real, what is he if not a different species? Like, you know, I'm like, why can't you see that these things are not mutually exclusive? And I always hated that. But, you know, this is like, the koala actually could just be God. Like, yeah, I mean, he would be a different species, as I just said. If God is real, what is he if not a different species? But, you know, does the koala have control over our lives? Does he create a deterministic universe? Why is he smiling? What does he know? I kind of like the... Do you think we'll get an episode out of the koala? Or is that, like... Is that the problem of showing too much? Does the koala work best if he's only, like, alluded to? You could theoretically have a whole episode that takes place in the afterlife. That worked great for Voyager, didn't it? But no, I think that could be fun. An entire episode with the koala, but you'd have to do it right. But no, I agree. Moopsie is definitely an emissary of the koala. Moopsie is a god, and they're gonna drink your bones. I really like that the prophets were polytheistic. Yeah, no, I really, don't get me wrong, I like I mean, what don't I like about Deep Space Nine? I even like Section 31 in Deep Space Nine. But, yeah, no, it just really bothers me that there's a conflict between the Federation and the Bajorans when there doesn't seem to need to be one. Like, the biggest time they really come into conflict is just that school episode, and I'm like, still, it's not mutually exclusive. Like, again, we don't know the full, like, Bajoran text. Maybe it's far worse than it actually is, especially, like, the real orthodox stuff like Kai Wynn was. But, the prophets living in the wormhole, being a species that is not any other species we know, is not mutually exclusive with the prophets, being Bajoran gods, because they do send the orbs. They do have influence over what happens on Bajor. They do care about Bajor. Like, you know, if anything, with that school episode of Deep Space Nine, I'm like, it is baffling to me that Keiko teaches about the wormhole without even mentioning the prophets. Like, that would be like learning about Mecca, or like even broadly, like the Middle East, the Ottomans, or like any of the empires in that area, without mentioning Islam. It's like, or, you know, teaching European history without mentioning Catholicism or Christianity. It's like, you gotta bring this up. Like, you don't have to teach it as, you know, for lack of a better word, gospel. Like, you don't have to literally say all this stuff is true, but I'm like, it seems baffling that you should at least mention, like, oh yeah, and the Bajorans believe that the prophets are, you know, they're gods, and this is what they think. Like, when I went to history, we did 101 on the major world religions. It's just, that's one of my kind of biggest critiques with Deep Space Nine, is it's not a huge focus, which is why it's alright, but it's always there. That conflict between, well, Starfleet isn't supposed to have a god, you know, the Federation isn't supposed to be religious, but it's like, they're there! You can go ask them! You can talk to them! We can categorically prove that they exist, and they do at least the broad strokes of what the Bajorans say they do. Sisko not wanting to be the emissary, fine. That's a personal thing, but like the prophets, there's no conflict. I just don't see that conflict. Especially because I think the prophets were mostly focused on like Bajor. In the Bajoran faith, they never really do anything to other species, so they're even more in line with what we see. It's just, it comes across more as the Federation just refusing to accept that anything vaguely religious could possibly be true, even when it's scientifically staring them in the face. And like, accepting the prophets doesn't mean that you accept that, like, even that, like, a god is real beyond what the prophets do. Like, all the Federation species are still totally unaffected. It's just weird, that conflict. I never really understood it. But yeah, that's not really what we're going for. This is a Lower Decks review, and we've done far too much about the prophets. I wonder if you could get Sisko just chilling with the koala. That wouldn't make... you know, that's a reference for reference sake right there. I'm not even sure if that's worth getting Sisko back for. Although it would be fun. I don't know. You need the right thing to bring Sisko back. You really would.
That's like you'd need the right thing to bring Disco back.
What about when the prophets kept the enemy from attacking? Do you mean when they made that, like, Dominion fleet disappear? I mean, yeah, well, that wasn't, like, supernatural. That happened within the wormhole. The prophets, I don't even think the Bajorans believe that the prophets have some sort of dominion over, like, space and creation. Like, most gods in humanity are all-powerful. You know, the Christian god, I'm pretty sure the Islamic god, probably a lot of the other ones, can do whatever they want. They can snap their fingers and bam, everything's gone. Everything appear. The universe is now cheese. Just space is cheese. All of it. You know, they could do that if they wanted. But I think the prophets don't really do that. I don't think the Bajorans believe they can do that. And like, yeah, like in the wormhole, the prophets can probably do whatever the heck they want. If the prophets suddenly made all Jem'Hadar believe in, like, equality and cooperation, then yeah, they'd be much more gods, like in the traditional sense of the word. But like, unless you want to say that God by definition cannot be proven to exist, or probably as the Federation would probably tell you by definition God can't exist. Because if it exists, it can't be called a god. But that's circular. You know, that seems to be the basis of the Federation's refusal to accept the prophets, is because the Bajorans call them gods. If the Bajorans didn't call them gods, if the Bajorans just called them, like, well, I guess even just the prophets, like, the conflict would probably go away, you know? If the prophet, if everything was exactly the same about the Bajoran faith, except instead of calling them gods, they called them aliens, the Federation wouldn't have a single problem with it. Like, that's why the conflict seems so flimsy to me. I mean, from the North gods, and they were all very flawed. I mean, yeah, I'm not even getting if they're like flawed or not. I just don't understand why the Federation is so against the prophets, especially when they're staring them in the face. If there's no evidence, fine. Yeah, be against the prophets. But the fact you literally work in a space station that orbits heaven. Your commanding officer is literally Jesus. Like, come on. At least acknowledge they exist and have some sort of power, you know? It's like, what if instead of the prophets it was Q? There was a race that just called Q gods. I mean, are they really wrong? The Q didn't create the universe, but other than that, they've got all the powers of a god, as far as we can tell. It's just the word god the Federation has a problem with, and that's why the conflict bothers me. It's like, just stop being biased and acknowledge that these two things are not mutually exclusive. But yeah, no, I mean, I've always liked Deep Space Nine. The fact that it just sat in one place and you get to learn so much about the alien races in that one place was fantastic. I think all of the most developed races in the Federation, besides obviously humanity and maybe Vulcan, are all from Deep Space Nine. Just flat out. The Bajorans, the Cardassians, the Dominion, the Ferengi, I mean, even the Klingons get a good chunk of their development from Deep Space Nine. It's being able to just sit in one place was so good for Deep Space Nine. Not that, of course, you know, the exploration's also good, but you need the breadth, but you also need depth in some places to really make the universe work, and Deep Space Nine was great. I mean, really, are the Vulcans the only race outside of Deep Space Nine that really have that kind of development? The Klingons, yes, but the Klingons also had a fair amount of Deep Space Nine. But the Vulcans really go places. And, of course, I'm lumping the Romulans in with that. The Romulans were also in Deep Space Nine, but the Vulcans and Romulans, like, where they went from the start of Enterprise to the end of Discovery, they probably go places more than any other race. Like, maybe the Cardassians go further, but they don't really change is the problem. After Deep Space Nine, they seem to go back to, like, status quo until you get to, like, the 32nd century. They're just the same creepy lizard men. But yeah, no, Deep Space Nine's good. That's see, this episode of Lower Decks was so kind of like meh that we just had to resort to Deep Space Nine to have something else. But yeah, since we've got time as well, unless any other comments come in, I'll say, yeah, things have been real busy because we're in the process of getting a house and then moving. There will not be, there probably won't be any videos for at least like 2 months, at least a month. Probably a while because of that. Like, all the film lighting stuff is packed. I literally can't film something.
I mean, you could,
well,
it just wouldn't be great quality.
I was about to say, I can, but you can't see it, which is pretty bad for, the reviews I tend to do. I guess I could do, like, a game rant thing, just without a webcam, but I'm probably not gonna do it. Unless the strike gets resolved, still no watch-alongs of Star Trek, after the new episodes, because I just think that will... I don't have a big audience, but there's not going to be a new Trek for at least a year. Well, Discovery, yeah, so like a year. And my doing watch-alongs, I think, would not only, it would be my subscription, I'm probably canceling it after this, but after Lower Decks, but it would cause other people to subscribe as well, which is just funding Paramount. I don't want to do that. So, November 4th is the last review. After that, we will probably do Doctor Who watch-alongs, and maybe like reviews of the new Doctor Who episodes, just so there's something. Unless I need to make space for more videos. But then, when I get the new house, which may or may not have a proper table, we'll have to deal with that. I might have to, like, burn it down or something to prevent everyone from dying, which, of course, is what would happen if I ever got a proper table. Everyone would die. But what even was the point of that sentence? Oh, yeah. I'll probably wrap up the newer models in the unreleased models. Then we'll see. I probably would like to keep on with Starship reviews, or at least, even if they're not like necessarily the models, using the models to review the starships. Since Eagle Moss went down, though, there's not really the new ones. I've been a little less interested in that. We'll see how things go. But I did, you probably saw in my community tab, now that Eagle Moss money has gone away, and, like, I'm pretty much caught up with Master Replicas, I have gotten back into the LEGO stuff. So I put a thing, it's like, I gotta load the modular buildings. If you don't know from, like, LEGO, some of the big, like, icon sets, I'm like, I review things. The plan was honestly that Starship Review was supplemental. It was gonna fill the 3-week gaps between my main videos, like the poorly explained, or the theories or whatnot. That obviously didn't really happen. I do want to get back in those main videos. There's like a translator, universal translator one I want to make, but that's all after the move. I might, as like a periodic non-Star Trek thing, sprinkle those like big Lego set reviews in. I think that could be fun. I think the modular buildings are a good series. And we'll see where that takes us. The plan was kind of to, we can't do starships forever. There's a finite number of starships. And so maybe like other Star Trek merchandise was the stuff I was thinking. I thought maybe I could do some of those uniforms or like that Tom Paris plate. But we'll see how the channel goes. Maybe we diversify away from pure Star Trek. I mean, we're already going into Doctor Who because it's not striked. Technically, there's Disney Plus. It's going to be complicated to do early season watch-alongs. You have to look, it's complicated. It's beyond the scope of this. I'm still working it out. But if anyone has any ideas, throw them in like the community chatter. I mean, I guess you can email me. That's how you can initiate conversation. The comments of this video. But yeah, I'll probably experiment with the modulars because I like them. That's where my kind of heart is now. And we will see what things happen. Now that I'm going to get a house, my free money is going to get a lot shorter every month. And I've interested in Lego again, meaning the expenditures I want have just skyrocketed. So, if I focus on the channel more, I have more money. So, there's a good push. Also, I have less money to do other free time things. So we'll see how things go. Maybe I could try Star Trek Resurgence or like get back into gaming stuff. There's loads of things I would be doing with YouTube, but it's like the hard entry barrier where if I had an editor or like some other people who could help with that content, because even just after you've filmed something or recorded something, you've got to, if you record audio, like an audio only video, which I don't do anymore, this is why, I go through it, I write the script, I go through it once to record it, and then I go through it again to clean up the audio, get rid of the pauses and like the bad takes. And then I go through it again to add all the graphics, and then I go through it again finally to do the final watch through. you get kind of bored of it. Even like the reviews and stuff, they're just film and edit, which are much more manageable. You have to go through it at least twice, ideally 3 to watch through it, and it can get kind of draining, can take up time, because I also do the full-time job. It's not the fun part of the video. But, you know, you can't get those kind of help staff to make it easier, or even, like, more enjoyable, because you're cutting out the dull parts. Until you have the real sizable audience, and at that point, it's like a business, but we'll figure it out. There's always helps if I want to do it. Like, I kind of want to go through all the modular buildings. And so those will probably definitely come out, because some of those will definitely come out because I want to go through them, and, like, some of the retiring ones, the Colosseums. But we'll see how things go. Yeah, I might even... I don't know if I'd make a second channel, but if it becomes big enough, I might just split that off and be like, this is the channel where we review Lego, but do I get Lego enough for that? I don't know. We'll see. As I've said, there's a lot going on. I need a house, and then we gotta do a bunch of stuff to the house, and it's gonna be busy, but unless internet takes a while, there shouldn't be any disruptions to these streams. I do want to get back into like the game rant stuff or those random reviews. Those are quick and easy. I can do those in batch and then free up to do bigger videos. Sitting in front of a camera, so it made editing a lot easier. Like, what was it? The watch order guide, where I was in front of a camera and kind of cut away to clips every now and then. That was much easier to do than fully, like, graphical, built up from scratch videos. But we'll see where the channel thinks. Oh yeah, Starships with Alex. God, I forgot about that series.
What?
When you reviewed Starships?
We can still do that. It's just they're all packed away.
Yeah, we'll probably try that again. The problem with that, there's one session we recorded that I still haven't even edited. It's just been sitting on my hard drive for ages. Is that Alex is starting to see a lot of the ships as like samey, especially Federation. It's kind of like everything is an Enterprise with them. So the reactions I think get a little less interesting, and for us doing it, it's not quite as enjoyable as those first ridiculous ones. But I might try like showing them alien stuff or Vulcan stuff. But, I mean, the one that we thought was the worst, I'm looking at it now, the last one, Star Trek Newbie Has Brain Broken by J.J. Abrams. That one was the best performing. You guys loved that one, for some reason. So, what do we know? You know, like... And Alex, I think, you wanted to get into, like, that editing stuff and things as well. So, if I can offload even more production onto free labor, just exploiting love for profit, then...
You'll have to pay me. It's just our money goes to the same place.
Then we'll, we'll see how the channel goes, but it's going to be a real busy time recently. But yeah, people like the game rant thing, so I'll probably try and do that, unless the articles are all really plain and simplistic. But I've got some real cracking headlines. Wait, here's a teaser. There was one I found really recently. Oh yeah, I remember. I want to get this one is actually Screen Rant, but there's an article I haven't read, of course, because that's the point of the video, called 10 Weird Things About Spock's Body. Yeah, Alex is giving me probably the same look. Their eyebrows just did the same thing you probably did. And it's probably like his blood is green, his body temperature's low, but like, what a title. Like, the first sentence is 10 ways humans find Spock's body weird. Like, that, that's a video out of that. I got some stuff. I'm just looking through, yeah, what was the one, Bajor Explained, where its history goes from even before its first appearance in Star Trek, which is nonsensical. We'll do things. But yeah, I've now rambled for about twice the time of the episode. I most YouTubers try and hit 10 minutes. I, for some reason, go for, like, it's not a real stream unless it's an hour long. But I do find this interesting. Like, I think since... it's been a while. I think since Prodigy, I've always had a consistent... There's been active people in the audience for these live streams. And yeah, that was, like... I did Lower Deck Season 3, and then Prodigy. I think I've always had a pretty consistent audience. But Lower Decks, these last two. Del, obviously you're here, but it's kind of the first time in a long time that... Like, the last live stream, no one was there. And so I wonder if interest in this season of Lower Decks is kind of waning, or the episodes aren't interesting enough for people to be interested in discussion, which is interesting. I mean, rather, by definition, the people who always came to my stream were fans of me and, like, wanted to see what I had to say. But that is... I'm finding that interesting. I wonder if Lower Decks is kind of waning this season in popularity, or at least generating discussion, because there's a very big difference. I think Discovery was like this, where a lot of people watch it, but not a lot of people talk about it outside the show. But we'll see. We'll see how things go. So I think then I will wrap it up there. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.